Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under weekend review. My name is Anthony McGuire. I'm joined by Dave and Paul as we dissect Motherwell 1, Celtic 3. Decent game at Fir Park last night or yesterday afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Dave, how was your weekend, mate?
It was okay. I watched the game today, actually. I missed it last night. Had something on, so I managed to catch it up today. But apart from that, it's been relatively quiet and not a lot happening over here just now for me.
Did you manage to stay in the dark, or did you know the score? Did you check the score straight away, or did you go sort of?
No, I didn't see the score until this match. I don't really bother about that. I get up first thing and check it and just make sure and see. And then just catch up with the game. Well, I don't really mind finding out the score, but I found it this morning.
Yeah, no worries. Paul, how was your weekend, mate? You were in Melbourne, I believe.
I was, yeah. I was in Melbourne, so it was a good trip. Yeah, I went to see the Flaming Lips. Since they didn't venture to the West Coast on this particular tour, so yeah, caught up with a good mate of mine. I went to the gig with him on Saturday. Caught up with a few other people, including family, while I was there. A couple of exhibitions, a bit of culturing. Yeah, it was decent. But yeah, as I said just before we came on, a bit tired because obviously they're 3 hours further forward than we are. So been up for a while, and obviously up in the middle of the 2 o'clock kickoff there rather than the 11 p.m. that we moan about. So
I wasn't sure whether you were just you watch it in a delay this morning on the way back to Perth on the plane or something like that.
Well, I had intentions of setting an alarm and getting up for it at 2 o'clock. However, I had a few beers yesterday afternoon with my brother-in-law and neglected to set the alarm. I know it's a bit of a current theme in it. Neglected to set the alarm and woke up randomly at 2:30, and I was like, oh, missed the first half hour. So quickly turned it on and then watched the rest of the game as live. And literally, I think Ida's goal was just going in. I just got the replays as I was turning on. So yeah, watched the rest of the game and then watched the first kind of half hour, 40 minutes this morning to catch up on the full performance kind of back to front. But yeah, I certainly have a bit more sympathy for our East Coast brethren. We moan about our fixture times, but I think they've got it even rougher, especially in summer. So yeah, I'm kind of pleased to get back onto Perth time, I think.
I had a couple of fringe shows over the weekend to go see, so that was good. A couple of wee sort of dinners, excursions out to Northbridge. Caught up with our co-contributor Richard, who's working very hard these days, so can't join us online. But had a lovely dinner with him last night, and his wife and my wife. So went and saw a show, so that was really good to catch up with them. And then had all sorts of IT issues the first half of the Celtic game, so I was trying to find any sort of dodgy stream at one point, but finally got it working for the second half. So I watched back the first half this afternoon. But thankfully, plain sailing, relatively speaking, on the park, if not off it. Just bringing in some of the comments. We've got McLaughlin P saying that "Don't Dream It's Over." Hey now, what a tune! Yep, the Old Crowded House, indeed, always a classic. What else we've got? Pete McGee's also saying, "Jota storing on his return. It was written in the stars." Plenty on that tonight. Jerry Burns saying, "How we doing? Jota looking the part already." Yep, I must admit, everyone was playing him down and saying that he had a bit of fitness issues, but he definitely had glimpses of the old Jota. There was definitely that one mazy run off the left wing that was very Jota-esque. But again, like I said, that's just a bit of a preamble before we get into it. But obviously, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been on. So obviously, the damage of Storm, some Irish name, can't remember. So obviously Celtic Park was damaged. So the Dundee game was postponed and takes place this Wednesday night, I believe, as a rescheduled fixture. So that's why we weren't on last week, because we just do obviously the weekend game. So obviously we've had young boys. We secured a win eventually. Hilder's last game, could have went with a hat trick. Hilder's away. And then obviously we had Villa at Villa Park, and obviously a real solid fight back to 2 each, but unfortunately just didn't have enough in the tank to get a result there. But a decent performance in patches there after a terrible start. So on the back of all that, there was 4 changes from the team that faced Villa to face in Motherwell at Fir Park. So Dyson Maid was suspended, so he has basically had a 10-day layoff. So he came back into the left wing with Ida and Kuhn up front. And then the midfield change was Engels being replaced with Luke McCowan, Anthony Ralston giving AJ a spell at right back, and Sark Carter-Vickers back in, who was, I feel, a big miss against Villa. I think that was really, much as we missed Maeda up top, I would have liked to have played Villa with CCV at the back, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. So CCV was partnering Trusty with Taylor at left back, McGregor in the middle with Hattati, and Schmeichel in goals. So the 4 changes, Dave, probably back to our strongest lineup, no more Kyogo. Jota's no obviously 100% yet, as we've said. So how are you feeling coming at this one? Obviously, a lot of exertion. I mean, all right, we didn't get the result against Villa, but it was a fairly, it was a very, what's the word, athletic encounter. You'd say like both teams were having a real go at each other, and it was a proper cup tie. So how are you sort of feeling coming into the game against Motherwell, who, on their side of things, their manager resigned during the week, Stuart Kettlewell, getting pelters from the fans. Motherwell currently sitting 5th, or leading up to that game, we're sitting in 5th in the league. Apparently not happy with his style of performances, although, you have to say effective at getting results. So a bit of an interesting one. But yeah, what was your sort of take going at this one, Dave?
I don't go into most domestic games reasonably confident. I think we've got quite. If we even turn up in second or third gear, we're going to win the majority of our domestic games. Having Cameron Carter-Vickers and Dyson Maeda back definitely makes the team look stronger. So I didn't have any worries about that. What I was a wee bit concerned about, and we lost a goal against yesterday, and we'll touch on that again. We're losing more goals than we were in the first half of the season, I'm noticing. We lost 3 against in the derby, we lost 3 against Dundee. Villa scored 4 past us, that sort of thing. So we seem to be losing a bit more goals, and I don't know if it's just a bit of just part of the season you have to go through, or if there's something no entirely confident about the defence yet. But we seem to be losing some goals. So if we are in a position where it's that game where we're no scoring goals, are we going to be in a bit of trouble sometime? Because with Bayern coming up, they're banging in the goals. Although they're losing goals as well, they're banging in the goals. So overall, I wasn't worried, but and I'm happy with the performance. I thought the performance was excellent overall. We dominated the game from start to finish. Cameron Carter-Vickers, when he is out of that team, they just look lost at the back. Sometimes they really struggle. I like Trusty and I like Scales. However, they need somebody next to them to keep them in the right place and keep them concentrating. And Cameron Carter-Vickers does that at the back. So yeah, I agree. I agree that maybe, and as for the Motherwell, how they went into it, I think it would be remiss not to. It's a wee bit unfortunate now, and it happens across all clubs. It's not specific to Motherwell that these guys are giving their all for the club, whether you agree with what they do or not. To be attacked like that, or your family being threatened like that, and the family and children feeling unsafe to go to their dad's work is right out of order, and they should hang their heads in shame, the people that did that. Because and I know there have been Motherwell fans over the past week that have said the same thing, so it's not.
Yeah, no,
they needs to be dealt with.
Fair point. No, I agree. I mean, you who'd be a football manager? I've said it on this podcast umpteen times, and it seems to be the only place in the world, only workplace where it's perfectly acceptable to get absolutely dog's abuse for for 90 minutes. Like in no other workplace would that be tolerated. But apparently you pay your money to go watch a football team, you're entitled to do whatever you like. Paul, stats-wise, we were comprehensive, 80% possession, 10 corners to 3. I've got 9 shots on target to 1, 8 off target to 1. Yeah, we forced 5 saves from their goalkeeper. Schmeichel didn't have a save to make, apparently. Didn't take as long to get going, first minute. So just it was your overall summation and takes out the first goal because, like I said, you don't have to wait very long for it in the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think I agree with, obviously, Dave, that we never, apart from there was a couple of times where they got sort of in behind and they had a couple of opportunities, but in the first half predominantly, and there was a bit of a period where we weren't as dominant as we were in other parts of the game, but certainly in the second half we sort of stepped it up and they really went into their shell and never really threatened. But yeah, I thought it was a really good performance, and we luckily we put the gloss on it at the end. But even during that period in the second half where we couldn't get the third, never really thought like we were likely to get pegged back. You know, some of those games you think, there's if you don't take your chances, then they might nick one. Never really felt like it was going to happen, and obviously that's how it played out. Great start. Daiza Maeda, obviously near enough starts and finishes it. He gets down the left hand side and he whips a great ball across the penalty area, and there's no one really there for it. It sort of makes its way all the way through to Ralston, who picks it up, and then Maeda has the sort of presence of mind to not just sort of stand on Semri and sort of admire his cross. He's still alive and on the move, gets himself from an offside position back onside, and then Ralston whips a brilliant cross in. And there was a lot of concerns about Ralston, and I think it probably stems more from his defensive side than maybe his attack and play. Like his delivery's always been decent. He whips in a great ball. And Maeda just makes a little bit of a movement for the defender, and the defender buys that, and then he just drifts off him and he puts himself in space. And after that, it's a brilliant header. Like he's kind of on the move back, so he's kind of moving back, but then has to use the power in his neck muscles to plant the header back where it came from. And really, as long as he gets sort of good contact and direction on it, the keeper's got no chance because he's sort of he's moving the wrong direction and has to then he's off balance as it goes back into the opposite corner. But it's a great header. It's a well constructed goal, and it's a perfect start at sort of less than 50 odd seconds. I think it went in on. So yeah, we always say we want a fast start and we want to get an early goal, and you could get much better and earlier than that. So I just think we sort of having got a really early goal, I sort of felt from there we not quite took our foot off the gas, but never really pushed home that advantage, and they kind of grew into the game, and they had a couple of chances. They had the corner that got whipped across, and it was a brilliant delivery by Thompson. And Stevie Frail would pulling his hair out, like it was begging for somebody to get on the end of that. And there was a couple of other little warnings. So the risks were there. I just think I didn't think we really got to grips with our full style of play post goal until we then went back in front.
Dave, it was a lovely delivery from Tony Ralston. I mean, it was. Admittedly, he had time. Like the defender was slow getting out to him, but he still whips in a good ball. There's enough pace on it, but like you say, Maeda has to generate some of that pace to header it back across the goal. Doesn't really give the keeper any sort of chance. So wonderful start, but I think for me that one as well. Luke McCowan sort of playing the ball forward, and I noticed that a lot in the first half. Very quick to try and drive the ball forward and find a forward pass and try and get us in behind. And sometimes it doesn't come off, but just try to feed Maeda early, get the ball in. And like I said, Maeda puts the ball across initially, and obviously there wasn't any takers there for that one, but we managed to recycle possession and get the opening goal. And what was your sort of take leading up to Motherwell's equaliser? Was there anything that sort of jumped out at you? Anything that sort of patterns of play or anything that sort of shifted?
Not really, because when I watched it, I thought it's just kind of come from nowhere. Yeah, they had got up the park a wee bit, but they weren't. Wasn't as if they were chatting on the door. They had that one corner, as Anthony mentioned, but that was it. There was nothing. It wasn't as if they were getting in behind and Schmeichel had made a couple of saves and whatever. That hadn't happened. It just seemed to come from nowhere. In regards to the goal, I think it's a free kick. I think it's a push of Cameron Carter-Vickers. And I listened to the commentary today and the half time. Those two talking at half time. It doesn't matter if there's not enough contact. It pushes him off the ball. Cameron Carter-Vickers is steadying himself to clear that ball. And as he moves forward to try and get into the right position to jump, he gets pushed. It doesn't need to be this whole thing that it seems to happen, particularly in Scotland and Scottish football media, about is not enough contact. It doesn't matter if it's enough contact. It's contact. You're not supposed to push people off the ball. So I would, to me, it's a free kick. However, having said that, Trusty should have been better. Trusty, and that's so he's losing concentration from time to time. You can see that. I don't know if it's just a settling in period, if he's just, still a wee bit nervous. This is probably the biggest club he's ever played at. It's a lot of pressure to play at Celtic, and we've got quite a demanding support, and we have to win every game, especially domestically. So, and maybe it's just a settling period, but he should have just all he had to do was put his laces through that and launch it up the park. But he took, for some reason, I don't know if it's the spin of the ball, he tried to stop it with kind of the front, his chins or something. I don't know, but like I say, it came from nowhere. And I think after that, as Anthony says, we got the second goal a few minutes later, 6 minutes later, and they were never they never really done anything. Having said that, actually they did. Maswinisi went right up the park after the second goal and shot just across the face of Casper's goal. So, but that was that then. There was nothing really after that I thought we're in trouble here. And like was mentioned, even towards the end of the game, I just didn't feel that they were ever looking at it. I knew the result obviously before I watched the game, but looking at it, you didn't see Motherwell making chance after chance. It just didn't come. So
I say that.
I think it's just.
I say that was true in
through
the
that
second
period,
half.
as I mentioned.
I thought the first half they maybe offered a wee bit more, and then they sort of went into the shell in the second half, and we sort of got to grips and played our game. But I kind of thought they had the odds. I mean, without getting a shot on target, obviously, but just the sort of getting up the park and putting us under a wee bit of pressure. But I kind of feel, Paul, that some of that pressure was brought on by ourselves, because it was a Callum McGregor mislaid pass that sort of sparks that whole counter-attack from Motherwell that leads to their goal. I mean, admittedly, the ball in is a good one, and Kuhn's try to shut him down, and can you do better? It's probably Kuhn's defensive side of things not his strong suit. And then I agree with Dave. The Trusty was caught flat-footed, and I think the annoying thing for me is whether it's a foul or not. And for me, it'd be very soft if it was given. The one I think of is the one where Morelos got done for the hand in the back of AJ a couple of seasons ago, and that got picked up when VAR was intervening with everything. So, yeah, you can make a case either way, but the thing that annoyed me the most was we kind of stopped. You had Callum McGregor with his hand up in the air, you had Carter-Vickers with his hand up in the air, and you kind of feel like Trusty stopped as well because it's come off his shins. He's not really made any real attempt to clear the ball, and everyone's just waiting for the referee to blow for a free kick, and the Motherwell guys banged it in the back of the net. So I think for me, the old play the whistle mentality was missing there, and for me that's annoying. But McGregor, I counted 3 passes in the first half. There was the one right in the first 3 minutes, he gave the ball away, the one for the goal, and then right after that, the one that whistles past Schmeichel's post. Again, it was McGregor getting a shin on it or a foot on it, but knocking it back into our own defensive sort of 18-yard box, and it wasn't really to anybody, and Motherwell pick up the loose balls. So, and this was on the back of the performance at Aston Villa, which I didn't feel we had a great game there. I thought he had a great game in his young boys. I thought he was fantastic that day, but I felt he was a bit lacking in Aston Villa. And then I wasn't, and obviously should have mentioned at the top of the show. Obviously, it was his 500th game, and I'm not trying to denigrate a captain, but you've got to call a spade. And like I said, I didn't feel he had one of his better games. But Paul, feel free to correct me or say I'm wrong.
No,
but,
I think you're right. He probably didn't have up to his best games. We've talked about it a lot down the couple of years we've been on this show together, where, you know, if he's, you know, most games he's an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So that on the odd occasion where that drops, you know, it is a bit more obvious. If we go back to their goal, I've got to say it's a Stonewall foul. Like, and I kind of agree with Dave's point in terms of, for me, it's not just that there's a bit of contact and that's any contact's enough for foul. It's the subtleties of this stuff that I think a lot of people miss. To me, this is very similar to when a player's running full tilt and he gets a little clip and he goes over, or he's impeded. It only takes when you're moving at that amount of pace, it only takes a little bit of contact for it to be meaningfully interrupt what was otherwise going to happen. For me, CCV's just starting his jump, so he's not secure on the ground. He's not locked in. And once you're once you're basically in the air, a tiny little bit of contact is going to move you pretty significantly. There's two hands, and you can see by the way he sort of flails, there's no reason he would take that movement without contact. I think some of the camera angles were a bit poor, but there was one camera angle which is round that side and pretty much very similar to the view the referee had, actually. So I think it's bad enough the referee didn't pick it up. For Beaton just to ignore it, like, I get what you're saying as well. At the end of the day, they should play the whistle. But it was, to me, it was blatant, and that's why everyone expected it. I think Trusty.
Do you think the poor quality of the actual camera footage might have something to do with it? Because it's kind of like almost obscured. Like, you don't actually really see the push clearly. Like, the two angles you get, it's kind of like it pans to it and it's already happened. Like, it's for me, that was part. I felt that was part of it, because there probably was a clear actual view.
Well, the camera positions at Fir Park are absolutely atrocious. Remember, we had that issue.
We'll get onto the offside later, but
the cameras generally are really poor there. I think go back to Trusty. I think Trusty is caught flat-footed, but I think he's a wee bit unlucky in that it all happens really quickly. He's expecting CCV to win that header, and because he gets impeded, then he doesn't, and the ball sort of comes over the top, and he's sort of caught under it. He is flat-footed, and it just bounces off him, and then obviously Armstrong smashes it into the net. I just think really poor officiating, and not for the first time, and not for the first time that day. I thought the refs were generally poor. But yeah, we should probably do a little bit better. I don't think the defence. I think Taylor had a good game, but otherwise, the centre back pairing probably could have. They didn't have the best day, although they didn't have much to deal with second half.
Stephen Rice saying here that European football uses Netflix while Scottish football uses Betamax. I think you're showing your age there, Stephen, by referring to Betamax. I think a few of our younger viewers, if there are any, will be scratching their head as to what that is, but fair play. Dave, it didn't take as long as you pointed out to equalise. Sorry, not to equalise, to go back in front again. So about 7 minutes later, where we'd sort of restored our lead. Probably the best goal of the game, I'd say. I thought the movement for this was pretty exceptional. Did you want to sort of talk us through how it all came about? It sort of started. Yep.
Yeah, well, I thought the whole game, actually, we moved the ball really well through the middle of the park, especially. And you're right, Callum McGregor, just to go back to that, does give the ball away actually more than people think, I think. However, that's his game, and he's going to those mistakes are going to make. What we get as a team is we then try and just win the ball back really quickly, and we do the whole 3-on-1 to get the ball back quickly. So, but the way that we moved the ball through for the second goal was excellent. The touch from Luke McCowan to put it through to Maida is world class. Luke McCowan was fantastic yesterday. He was really, really good. I don't know if that's his first start for the club, but I think
he's had a couple.
Or certainly he's not started many. But he was fantastic yesterday, and I think he should be knocking on the door for more starts, because he's got the energy that maybe Callum McGregor doesn't necessarily have anymore. Callum McGregor's that a wee bit older now. When Callum's going up and down the pitch, which he often does, he's maybe not getting back as quick as he used to. So having somebody like Luke McCowan there, who's very similar in stature, very similar, I think, in style to Callum McGregor, kind of busting at the box. And I noted as well that in the first half there there was a couple of times that Luke McCowan was just sitting at the edge of the box waiting for a cutback on his own, and they never actually made the pass. They went across the face of the goal. So his touch for that into Maeda, and Maeda hitting Ida the way he did was brilliant. And the big fella is just, I think he's an out-and-out striker. I think if we can get into positions where we've got him, like they say, in between the posts, he's going to score goals for us. And when we play the way we played yesterday, it suits him perfectly, because he's not as... He takes a lot of stick, and he has done since he came in the summer as a full-time player. And the amount that we signed him for has been used as baggage around his neck to drag him down. But he's a different style than Kyogo. I think he could lead the line. I really do. I think we do need another striker like Kyogo, and we'll come on to that later. But I think he could lead the line. I think his movement in the box is fantastic. And he's big and strong. When he's on the ball, outside the box, he holds it up really well. And our movement off the ball all the time just now is great. And that's what's opening these teams up. We're making the wee small passes, the wee 5-yard passes, and we're getting the touches. And then when you've got somebody like Daizen Maeda who can, sometimes he's erratic, and we know that, but most of the time his balls are great across, especially when he's whipping them across like he did yesterday to get into Adam Maeda's foot. And we'll talk about the third goal as well, because that was very similar to that. So the movement and the passing that we're doing in the middle of the pitch, I think, is what's creating the space.
I think we definitely favoured our left-hand sides yesterday. I mean, it was Kuhn had a relatively quiet game, and I think part of that is you've got Anthony Ralston behind him, so that partnership's not obviously as rock solid as AJ and Kuhn. So, I thought Ralston had a good game. I thought he was solid, and he got belted a couple of times. Like how one of the ones wasn't a yellow card, I don't know. He copped a couple of hefty challenges, but he just goes straight through anybody anyway. So, he's probably the one player in the pack you're not really that worried about, because he just gets up and goes again. But yeah, as I was saying, we sort of went down that left-hand side. But the thing I did like when we did do that was, particularly when McCowan got the ball, is he was playing the ball early, and Maeda needs to run onto it. If Maeda receives the ball and there's no space, he doesn't have the trickery or the armory to try and jink past a defender. But when he's running onto it, he's got a little bit of pace behind him. Then all of a sudden, the fullbacks just can't sort of live with it, can't keep up with it, and then that's when you get those wonderful cutbacks and crosses across the goal, which, as you say, Dave, they are bread and butter for big Adam Maeda. Paul, are you sort of seeing maybe Adam Maeda as a younger, maybe a higher ceiling than like a Giacomakis? Like, you kind of feeling that sort of ball in like that. Giacomakis was renowned for the back heels and the flicks and that attack in that front post with everything he had and just getting in front of the defender. And the goals he just scored at Villa Park, the goal, the pressure he put on the defender against Young Boys to eventually get the goal that won us the tie. And then obviously his goal against Motherwell last night, very similar. And I think you maybe said a few weeks back that like he needs to play more within the 6-yard lines in terms of like playing in front of the goals. And
yeah, somebody's
had a word. It seems to be working for him. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a pretty good comparison. He is similar to Giacomakis in that, there was a big deal about the first one-touch finishes. And I think they're both really instinctive penalty box strikers where, you give them too much time to think about something and they might overthink it. Whereas if you've just got it's just instinctive, one hit, it's in. I think, he's perfect for that. And we've got to remember, he's still 23. He's not played a huge amount of football. He was in and out of the Norwich team. And obviously he had a great run for us last season, but he was never the out and out striker. Now, depending on what happens in the next few hours, he might not be, or he might be. We'll see. But like most strikers, you feel like he's a bit of a confidence player. His tail was up last season when he played for us because he got off to a flying start. He scored some really important goals. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think we win the trophies, the double we win last year without him joining in January. And then, Dave's probably right. The price tag plus the lack of game time is probably weighed a bit heavy on him. But I think he's got all the attributes. He's got all the attributes to be a great striker. I just want to see us, and I said it. We didn't really give. I don't think we gave Kyogo the service he needed, and so far over the last handful of games, whatever it's been, 14 games without a goal. Yeah, he had 1 or 2 chances in that he missed, but he was starved of really good service like he's seen in the last couple of games. And if you give him that service in the right areas, he'll score goals. I just want to say, on his goal, the great finish, it probably was the goal of the game. I would say the thing that's maybe overlooked up until this point is Greg Taylor is heavily involved in that goal as well. He plays the early ball in. I think Tati, who plays it on to McCowan, who then slits it. But he doesn't, again, he doesn't sit and watch his pass. He tears off on a great outside run. And it just draws, is it O'Donnell? I think he just draws O'Donnell a little bit towards him, which opens up the gap that Maeda runs into. And by the time O'Donnell realises that Maeda's tucked inside him, he's too far out of position to get back. And then, yeah, it's a great ball in. But the only thing I would say about McCowan, I thought he had some really nice touches and he did play the ball forward. But I think he coughed up possession quite a bit. I think he did it at Dens Park. And he did it at Tannadice. And I think he's getting a little bit. And I don't want to be down on McCann. I think he's a good player, but I think he's like if that was Rio Tate, he'd be coming in for an absolute slating from the Celtic support. I feel like because he's come in, he's a Celtic fan. He came for a cheap fee and he's stepping up. I feel like there's
a certain amount of credit in the bank, so to speak.
I feel like he's getting a little bit more of a sort of pass from a lot of Celtic fans that would otherwise be the case. I've seen a couple of comments that agree with me to that point. There's 1 or 2 in there. So I think he's great for rotation and his time might come over the period. But the player I like, Engels for me still starts every time in the big games. Yeah, that's one of them. I think there was another one as well, but that definitely covered the point. A player I feel is a bit hard done by is Paulo Bernardo. Yeah. I don't think he's done anything wrong in any of his contributions, and he's probably getting the least minutes of any of the midfield 3. He is probably the one that's best suited to swap out for McGregor and sit a bit deeper. And I do think we should be resting Callum McGregor a bit more over the course of the second half of the season. He's played a lot of football as usual. But yeah, I think it's a nice problem to have. We've got a stacked midfield. I just feel like we could be rotating it a little bit better. But yeah, McCowan's been a great addition for me. But I do feel like he's not a starter for me in the biggest, most important games. And I do feel like he's getting a little bit of a sort of extra big up from some of our fan base because he is a fan and he's sort of he's probably punched above the weight that some people expected because he came from Dundee. But for me, that's not the bar. The bar is you're a Celtic midfielder.
Well, I think he needs to settle into how Celtic play as well. Like he played a certain way for Dundee, and that's obviously what caught the eye. But he needs to adapt to the Celtic midfield. So I mean, there's going to be a teething sort of period there as well. So I mean, the first 6 months, I think every player should get a pass to know they've had a chance to sort of bed in and settle in and see what happens. Let's bring some comments in. Pete McGee is saying claim that Ida is slow. No, I wouldn't say that at all. I think he's actually got quite a decent turn of foot for the size of him. I've never really felt he's slow. Some of his goals, like he's sort of charged from the halfway line and sort of chase balls down. And he worked his socks off against Aston Villa. He was absolutely done in by the time he came off that game. He did lead the line well, and he does work hard. And I think obviously he's been told that he needs to, and he got his rewards in his goals. But no, I definitely wouldn't say he's slow. Rich T saying here that Ida is a young Chris Sutton, physicality is Sutton, but he needs a bit more experience and that he's quality. And then McLaughlin P saying that he looks like a slim Dion Dublin with hair. Hopefully a young Dion Dublin and not the Dion Dublin that we got at Celtic Park near the end of his career when he was just feathering his nest egg. Dave, 2-1 at half time, second half came out. It was kind of, obviously that's when I'd switched on, and I kind of felt we were never really in any threat or any danger. Obviously, we created some really good chances. Ida's goal chalked offside with some very iffy VAR lines, which, interestingly enough, aren't parallel if you actually look at the image. Like they sort of go in like chopsticks. So
Yeah.
I don't understand how that works. Surely they've got to be parallel the whole way across the park. Any thoughts?
It doesn't look offside to me. If it is, those lines have been brought up a bit at Motherwell before, as mentioned. These lines just are off for whatever reason. They're blaming the camera angle. Well, tell them to move the camera. It's as simple as that. The camera needs to be moved. It doesn't look offside to me, and I think that it's something that needs to start getting addressed. They seem to take their time checking it as well. It seemed to be quite a long check to find the reason to chop it off, if you want to go down that road. No, I don't think in the second half we looked in any danger whatsoever. This is I think the young boys game. There was another game domestically as well, and where our keepers had a couple of worldy saves against us, and we've had a couple of goals chopped off for some legitimate reasons, and not so legitimate reasons, and we're just not getting that wee bit of luck that sometimes you need to put those games away as early as we would like to, because we could have been 5-1 up, but we're now gone yesterday quite easily, and yet it just didn't happen. Like it is to say, we should have been 3 or 4 up against young boys. We just mistimed the runs. They are offside. All of them are offside. That's fine, but it's just that wee bit of luck. But that's the team growing, I think, in the growth of the team, and they'll learn to come together like that a wee bit better. We dominated that over the whole game, even when they did get a hold of the ball.
Sorry,
a couple
Dave,
of times in the middle of the park, they didn't seem as if they were going to go anywhere with it because we were swarming around them and getting the ball back. Our midfield.
Sorry, Dave's just always having a bit of a technical issue there at the moment, so we'll just give him a second to sort out his internet. Paul, substitute, 65th minute, Jota on, obviously big cheers. Arnie Engels on for Kuhn and Luke McCowan. What did you make of Jota's return to the Celtic lineup?
Yeah, we're all obviously delighted he's back, but based on what's coming out from the player and the management, and obviously common sense, he's not played a lot of football in 18 months. He's obviously going to be drip fed back into the team. I guess the target will be to get him starting in that Bayern Munich game because Maeda is still suspended. But that's not that far away. I think there's only 2 more games before then. So you think he'll be gradually upping his minutes in the next 2 matches. But for a player that we thought would be rusty and not really match sharp, he came flying out of the blocks with some trademark sort of movement, running, trickery. So yeah, I think I saw a comment earlier on that said, wait till he's up to speed, because it was a pretty good cameo for the period he was on the pitch, and it's exciting, right? So I think he's the type of player that we don't really have another, like there isn't. Kuhn to some degree, he's got a bit of trickery and stuff, but he is relatively predictable. He'll more often than not cut inside, and then it's just a case of when he passes or shoots. Whereas obviously Jota's comfortable on both wings. He can go inside, he can go outside. He's got the skill level, he's got flair, he's got a right shot from outside the box. He can find himself in the 6-yard box and tucking things away. He probably gives us a threat from direct free kicks that we don't currently have. If you think back to that goal he scored, obviously it wasn't a great night in the Bernabeu, but he scored a cracking free kick that night. We haven't really got anyone since Matt O'Reilly left that's on direct free kicks. So I think he adds a whole heap of threat, plus obviously the feel-good factor of the connection that he's got with the fan base. So yeah, it was brilliant to see him back. It's great to see him getting the number 7 jersey. He's got the temperament and the confidence that jersey, I doubt, will weigh heavy on him with the history of it, which it has done on him for other players. And yeah, capped it off with, perfectly capped it off with a goal with the last touch of the game. So yeah, brilliant, fantastic for him, fantastic for us and the manager. And yeah, even if it takes him most of the season to get up to speed, and based on that first sort of snippet, it probably won't. But even if it does, you want him firing on all cylinders for Euro qualifier that will happen, Champions League qualifier that will happen early in the season, and then obviously into the next season. But great to see him back.
Trust my dad to find the fly in the ointment. Small problem that Jota likes playing on the left, as does Maeda. Well, thankfully, Jota can obviously play on the right. He did start on the right, but as Pete McGee, just as I was about to say, it is a good problem to have. We need depth. Because Palmer wasn't an option. Palmer started off all right and then fell in a hole, and Rodgers obviously didn't rate him. So we're basically playing with Maeda and Maeda. So you need the ability to swap out, and you need the ability that if Maeda gets a red card, and how he got 2 weeks for that, I'll never know. Like, that is just absolutely ludicrous decisions there, but whatever.
It's
just sorry, Dave.
It's 2 weeks because it's deemed violent conduct, 2 games for violent conduct. But I did want to try and mention that right back kicked him up and down that park the whole night. Absolutely smashed him up a couple of times, and the referee did absolutely nothing about it. No, he shouldn't have kicked out like that, and it was a silly thing to do. But he wasn't being protected on the pitch either. And it was literally
a foul on him. If the referee had blown it literally 2 seconds before, and then that kick out would never have happened. The referee let it go again. That referee was terrible, by the way. That was, we talk about Scottish referees, but that was some of the worst officiating I've seen in a European game in a long time. They were woeful. Anyway, I digress. So obviously, I just want to touch on this, guys, because obviously Jota got quite emotional after he scored his goal. He obviously did his pose over in the corner in front of the Celtic fans, fantastic. And as he was moving back to the centre circle, you see there was visible tears in his eyes, and obviously he probably thought he was never going to kick a football again at one point. Stuck in Saudi Arabia, it went completely pear-shaped out there. He got a lifeline at Rennes. Didn't really work out for him either. They're in a relegation scrap. The manager's been sacked, so Kyogo's gone there, and the manager's been sacked. So I feel a little bit for Kyogo as well. But obviously very emotional, and just happy to be there. And obviously I think he gets it now. And the grass isn't always greener, and yada yada yada. But some of the post-match comments from Chris Boyd and Aidan McGeady, who supposedly obviously he played for Celtic, but I wouldn't say he's an ex-Celt. Not for me, Aidan McGeady said. And then Chris Boyd goes, the only thing Maeda needs to deliver other than the ball was a box of tissues. And this comes from a guy who's apparently an ambassador for a mental health charity. So I just feel that Sky Sports, as per usual, pantomime rubbish. It's one thing to do the old firm, whatever, but I just kind of feel that was real bad taste. And the guy's clearly been through a lot. He's alluded to that in every press conference that he's done. Even after the game, he said, "Yep." He said, "I got emotional because I basically had some very dark days." So you have to say that mental health was obviously has been an issue and probably has been an issue. I mean, physically he looked a lot skinnier than when he left Celtic 18 months ago. So a lot of questions there, but I just want to point out that it was very, very poor punditry, and we want players to show emotion, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you can be strong and have a tear in your eye. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just felt the comments after the game yesterday were absolutely dreadful. And Chris Boyd, I sort of get, but Aidan McGeady, yeah. And funnily enough, everyone in the comments, not one person had anything nice to say about him. Everyone said he was this and that, and anyone that's bumped into him in real life said he was rude or he was obnoxious or just a wee Ned. So very disappointing, especially the fact that, like I said, he did wear a Celtic strip at one point. I'll just leave that as a comment. So we've got 15 minutes to go. Is there anything else that came up during the game against Motherwell that we wanted to talk about, guys? I feel we've sort of done a quite good review of that, so I'm happy to sort of jump to man of the match unless there was anything.
Well, and this will play into I'm sure we're going to touch on transfers. So it would be remiss not to point out the last two substitutions, which showed the glaring holes that we've got in our squad, where you bring Yang on for Ida and move Maeda into centre forward, and you bring Liam Scales on as a left back. So we've let a striker go and our left back go without replacing him. So if that doesn't, and look, I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan Rodgers made those two substitutions in that style.
To make a point.
But it's a glaringly obvious point that he shouldn't have to do that to be able to make that point. Yeah, look, we're not there yet, and I'm quite a practical bloke, and I always say judge the window at the end. But even if we get in what we want in, it'll be by the skin of our teeth and at the absolute last minute. And you can argue that, that doesn't really matter when it happens as long as it happens. But I just feel like we've played this window terribly. And
Groundhog Day.
Exactly. We did the same in the summer window, and there was commentary saying, we're going to get the backroom staff sorted, we're going to get the scouting department fixed, and we won't have another window like this. And here we are with a few hours to go, and it's exactly the same. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic. I say I'm hopeful more than optimistic that we get at least one or two bodies in, whether the bodies that we need, and whether they're permanent or on loan. As I say, I'll judge it at the end, but I just think it's pretty slack to let players go when you have. If you're going to let Kyogo go, great. You should have an absolute cast iron replacement, and
ready in the door.
He should be either already in the door or coming in the same 24-hour, 48-hour spell. And the same goes for Vi. We're back in a position where we've been for the last 5 years, where Greg Taylor's the only left back at the club. It's just a bit amateurish, to be honest. And I don't think it will really derail the season overly. I'm not one of these people that's panicking. Do I think we can get a result against Bayern Munich over 2 legs? No, I don't. So it's not really going to be a massive impact there. Do I think we've got a strong enough squad as is to win the league and the cup? Yeah, I do. But we should still not be self-harming to the point where we're negatively impacting the squad when we've got vast resources at hand. But we've put ourselves in a position where clubs can hold us over a barrel because they know we've got money and we've got a big gap in the squad. So we're going to have to pay a premium. And
the other problem you've got, Paul, is that given how slow we are in transfer windows, say we don't get a left back and a striker this window, you're going to want them for the next window. All right, we get KT in, but it's not the same problem because we're going to have early qualifiers like for Champions League. So you're going to want your team bedded and settled. But how we go about it, we don't sign players till the season's almost started, and then they can't contribute because they're not ready. So really, who you're signing for this window isn't almost even relevant to the next couple of months. It's really towards the end of the season, the pre-season start of next season. Because you showed we Kuhn, that first 6 months with him, all right, he had health issues, but he was nowhere near it. So, I mean, there's always a risk. So that's why you need that bedding in period. So that's why these signings are important. And as we go off air, there'll be 10 hours to go because it shuts at 11 o'clock Glasgow time. So it'll be 1 p.m. by the time just roughly the time we get off air here. So there'll be 10 hours to go. So there better be some players in because I mean we've lost Kyogo. Daniel Cummins is going to sign a pre-contract with West Ham. It looks like. I mean that's pretty much a done deal. Palmer's out the door. We sent Welsh out on loan. And who's the other one? We sent somebody else out as well. Obviously, Bernabé's gone on a permanent transfer. So I mean,
we've let Via go.
I let Via go. So I mean, we've cleared the decks. So I mean, yeah, you really need 2 or 3 players in just to fill the squad positions that we've lost. We're not even getting ahead. We're just replacing what's gone. And that for me is the frustration is that people don't know if we just get 1 or 2, that's okay. But we're actually, all right, we might have better quality. So I'd say Jota's an upgrade on Palmer eventually, once he gets fit. But the point is that it's 1 for 1. You're not getting ahead. We're just swapping one out for another. And like I said, we've lost Kyogo. So we haven't got that centre forward to replace that. Dave, we were having a bit of a good conversation just before we came on air about all this. So feel free to rehash some of the points that we were making because they were good ones. And we have this issue where we usually talk off air and it's actually a really good chat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the I'm 50-50 on this. I can see what people say in this argument, but I think the bit that we don't know, and that we don't really need to know as fans, really, or we think we might, but we don't really need to know, is how it goes on behind the scenes. I don't believe for a minute that Celtic are sitting in their hands and not doing anything. They're not trying to do anything. Is it Paul Tisdale? His name is. He's in there now. I'm sure he's working in line with Brendan Rodgers and the rest of the board and whoever needs to be involved in regards to getting people over the line. However, right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, Celtic have a very strict structure and they don't break it. And they don't like breaking it because they feel that going forward, from my perspective, they feel that going forward, that's only going to damage the club in the long term if we just keep breaking it and breaking it and breaking it. Now, you can see the frustration, how fans would get frustrated about that. Why can't we do it? Why won't we do it? However, we've got to accept, probably to some degree, where we are in the marketplace. I do think they hung their hat on Chris Garden. I think they've done that. That's what it seems to me. Hung their hat on him, try and get him, and is it Bromby's with, just won't budge on the 13 million or whatever they want. The Celtic say, we'll win no paying that. So where is your plan B? Where is your plan C? I would be very surprised if we don't bring a striker in. Be very, very surprised. The Valley thing, he was Barcelona's player. They made a decision to sell him because he wanted to go to Como. There's no great deal we can do about that. Again, maybe they've hung their hat too much on Kieran Tierney coming in January, and Arsenal have decided against that at the last minute. So where's the backup for that? Yeah, I would agree that these things maybe need to be addressed. However, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what happens in the background. All we see is the end product. All we see is the end product, whether that's getting a player or not getting a player. That's the only thing we see. And it can become frustrating, but Celtic don't do their business in the open either. Other clubs do. Other clubs have got things plastered across the newspapers and across the social media sites saying this is happening and that's happening, and fans all get excited. Celtic do everything really quiet until usually the last minute, and they say, right, this is happening or this is not happening. Is
the
that
only counterpoint?
ideal
The
for
only
us?
counterpoint
No.
I say to what you're saying there, Dave, about things are happening in the background, is that Brendan Rodgers came out today and said, "How are we in this position again? Like, there needs to be another review. Like, we shouldn't be in this position." So he's obviously concerned. So I don't know whether he's putting pressure on or he feels that we're not close to signing anybody. I don't know. He's obviously clearly not happy. And I just bring this point in from Pete McGee saying that, lack of transfers is what forced Brendan Rodgers out the last time. What the F are we doing? And then, saying here we need to sign someone pronto. This is why managers leave. This is a perfect example. It's frustrating. And I take your point, Dave, that we probably are trying to work and do all these things. But if we knew that Brøndby wanted 13 million or whatever it is for him, we either had to make the decision 2 weeks ago that we're either going to pay it or move on and identify another target. There's no much point dragging it out to the last day and going, "Oh, we'll give you 10 plus an add-on." No, we want 13. Oh, we tried. You know what I mean? Establish what it is.
But this is the Adamida playbook. We took Norwich to the brink thinking they would break, and they just went no, and then we had to pay the money.
We blinked.
Well, we needed to, because we needed the striker, and we left it too late, and we're in exactly the same boat. So if I've heard multiple pronunciations, so I'm not going to even try and get it right until I've heard it properly. But I don't think you pronounce the D, is what I've heard. Anyway, if the Dane it clearly looks like he's our number one choice. So pay the money. I guarantee his wages fit the structure. So the only thing that we're quibbling over is a few million quid on the fee. Just pay it. Just pay it. Like if he's
or roll it into sell-on. Like, all right, give them a 25% sell-on or whatever it takes to get that 2 million rolled into a contract and get it done. But again, and I take your point, Dave, that they've identified 13 million, but our problem is it's not like we're offering 10 or 11. We're offering 8 or 9. The gap is too wide, and with obviously 10 hours to go, you kind of be thinking it would be like 1 or 2 million we're haggling over, not the fact that we're like this far apart. So it's just, like I said, it just feels that we just go through this every single transfer window, particularly the January one. And it's frustrating. And if we had Kyogo, well, you're saying, well, all right, we don't really need a striker, whatever. But we've sold our prize asset. And like we did well getting 10 million for Kyogo, fantastic, great, whatever. And he wanted to go, and you don't hold on to players that don't want to be there. I get all that. But he gave mood music months and months ago that he wanted to go. That should have been recruitment priority number one, is identify 10 strikers that potentially could become a Celtic striker and work through the list. Talk to Rodgers and say, which are your top three? Who should we really go for? Who should we push the boat out for? But we seem to be the guy from Bromby, and obviously we're linked to the guy who Rodgers coached back at Leicester, an older player, I can't remember his name, but he's signed for Middlesbrough today or yesterday, so he's out the picture. What are we left with? We have not been linked with anybody else. No other centre forwards I'm aware of. So it's frustrating. And I just don't want, who was the boy, the Scottish boy, ended up playing for us, and he was hopeless. He was quick, but he was mince. Oliver Burke. Your last thing you want is a loan like that, somebody getting punted around because nobody wants him, and he ends up at our door, and you feel obliged to play him when he was no up to it. So he wasn't up to it. He had physical attributes, but he was not a player. It's just frustrating. I just feel like here we are again. And Rodgers has delivered his part of the deal. He says, I'm going to get us playing good football in Europe. I'm going to get us qualified to the next level of the Champions League. He's done that. So surely the prize is...
He's also made us millions in that competition. I think 27 million just in prize money, plus all the add-ons through the gate and merchandise and all the other stuff. I think they reckon at least 40 will have been up. So take a quarter of that and buy the player, plus the profit you've made on other player sales. I just think it's short-sighted. Absolutely short-sighted. As you say, if we knew that was the fee, either we decide to pay it
I do think so.
Or we move on to other targets.
I do think that Celtic the board can be too risk averse financially at times. I understand that frustration. One, and I know different names that when the board gets bandied about, it's his fault, it's that's fault. The person who makes the decisions at Celtic Park is Dermot Desmond. And if Dermot Desmond wants something done, it gets done. Or if he doesn't want something done, it doesn't get done. For all he isn't in the building all the time or a lot of the time, he will, I would imagine, I'm understanding he's in constant communication with everybody. And if he's saying that's too high to go, then it's too high to go. But we do need to have another option. I would accept that. I was on the pot noodle the other day, and Jared said to me about who would you bring in? And I said, look, if we don't get anybody at 5 to 11, it was a bit tongue in cheek. I was a bit tongue in cheek about it. Why not go and get Lawrence Shankland for a season and tell him, look, you're going to play for a season, half a season for us, and then you're going to be in the bench because we're going to go get a better striker because he'll score goals for us. And I don't necessarily mean specifically Lawrence Shankland, but get somebody like him, but have a backup option in that general framework. Lawrence Shankland.
Where did Miovski end up? Where did Miovski end up in the end?
Girona. He's in Italy somewhere.
Girona.
He's in it. Girona.
Okay.
So I do think we need to have a better plan B, because we do seem to be hanging our hats on. Like I say, when you discussed it, we knew Kyogo was going away months ago, or Brendan Rodgers certainly knew that months ago. Did we just then say, well, we'll go get the Danish boy, we'll go get Chris Garden, and he'll be the striker? And then maybe they try to convince Kyogo to stay for another 6 months, and then they've relied too much on that. These are the bits that we don't know. That's the bits that we don't get to see. I can understand how people are sitting there worried that maybe Brendan Rodgers say, this is the same picture. I'm going to do the same picture as I did before. I don't want to do this anymore. I can get that frustration. However, we seem to be, in the summer, open to spending more money. We spent £20 million on two footballers. We've never done that before. We'd also bought Nicholas Kuhn in a few months before that. So we seem to be prepared to spend the money. We just don't seem to be making the decisions quick enough. And maybe it's that balance that they don't have right yet.
Well, the Manchester United job will probably be up before the end of the season again. So, always a risk that Rodgers might get tapped for that at some point. I'm joking, by the way. Not so much. Guys, let's do a man of the match. Oh, Spurs! Oh, come on! And just got a great win against Brentford last night. What are you talking about? He's saved it, and he won in the Europa League. He's good for another week at least. Man of the match. I'm gonna strip it out there. Daizen Maeda. He was like the Duracell bunny. He'd been sitting on the charging station for 10 days without a game. He was ready to rock and roll. A goal and 2 assists. Memories, yeah, goal and 2 assists. Yes. Yeah. Anyone want to fight me on that, debate me on that, or are we unanimous?
No. Yeah.
I honourable mention to Rio Hatate and Admida. I thought they both had excellent games, particularly Ida in terms of how he led the line and how he got involved, and obviously took his goal really well. Nearly forced another, obviously, with that great run off, and he was deemed to be marginally offside. I thought Rio Hatate pulled the strings. He was our best midfielder on the day. But yeah, you can't look past Maeda. It was a brilliant performance by him. So yeah, unanimous in my opinion.
Fantastic. Dave, any recommendations this week, mate? What have you been watching, reading, viewing?
I've not changed what I'm reading, but I see Jack Reacher's been renewed for a 4th series, so if nobody has tuned into that or alternatively read the books, they're a very easy pop culture book to read. But
okay.
Yeah, Jack Reacher, because that the film that Tom Cruise made a few years back wasn't the best version of it, but when they started the Amazon series, they've cast that really well. So it's a good fun kind of crime thriller type of thing. Okay. I would suggest that.
Fantastic. I've been watching season 2 of The Rig on Amazon Prime, so that's half the cast of Game of Thrones, with Martin Comston and a few other people thrown in. So set on a oil rig underwater, wee bit sort of supernatural elements. Not bad. It's pretty pull your brain out and suspend your disbelief for an hour, but it's pretty well done. So I don't mind watching that. So the second season has just dropped on Amazon Prime as the first season that was out last year. So yeah, worth a watch if you want a bit of escapist action, slight horror tones. Paul?
Yeah, so very random music recommendation this week. So obviously ahead of going to Melbourne to see the Flaming Lips, I was doing some back catalogue reminder research, just listening to plenty of Flaming Lips stuff to get me ready for the gig. And in amongst that, I sort of stumbled upon this album from 2021, which I wasn't aware of. And it's an album called Where the Viaduct Looms, with the Flaming Lips and a girl called Nell Smith. Now, this is one of the weirdest concepts I've come across in a long time in terms of music, but it works weirdly. So Nell Smith was a 14-year-old girl in 2021. She was a massive Flaming Lips fan. She made herself known to the band at gigs with her parents. And then somehow this sort of little friendship developed. And she was a singer. And Wayne Coyne, the lead singer of the Flaming Lips, became quite supportive and suggested they record an album together, which was a full album of Nick Cave covers. So she'd never heard of Nick Cave, as you might not, as a 14-year-old girl living in Canada, born in Leeds, but moved to Canada about 5 years of age. Anyway, it's brilliant. She's got an amazing vocal. There's a sad turn to this story, though. She died last year in a car crash at 17 years old. So kind of tragic. That apparently her solo debut album is pretty much in the can and will be released posthumously this year. But yeah, great album. If you're a fan of the Flaming Lips and or Nick Cave or both, give it a listen. Where the Viaduct Looms, Nell Smith and the Flaming Lips. Great album.
There you go. Thanks, Paul. Pete McGee just saying here, I've read every Reacher book and the series are great. Gaddafi Simtex saying that sign Miller to take over for McGregor. Yeah, I'd heard rumours that we might have a wee pop at getting him and loaning him back to Motherwell for the rest of the season. So he's one for the future. old man saying the agency, and I think somebody else said the agency, the night agent, and Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. He's a bit of a weird character. But yeah, plenty of options there for you guys for your viewing, streaming pleasure to fill in the void of Celtic. But 2 games this week. We've got Dundee on Wednesday night. It's a 3:45 a.m. kickoff if you're in Perth, Western Australia. And then we've got a 1:30 kickoff in the morning for Wraith Rovers in the Scottish Cup, which is the game that we will be covering next week on the weekend review. So I'm anticipating there might be a few changes to the team for that one. Surely Callum McGregor might get a rest, but we'll see. We shall see. Guys, it's been a pleasure having you on board tonight. Thank you everyone in the comments. It was a very vibrant comment section tonight. A lot of chat going on, which is great to see. Please like and subscribe to the episode on YouTube. It helps other like-minded Celts find us online. We will be back same time, same place next week as we look at Celtic versus Wraith Rovers. And guys, all that's left to say at the moment is hail, hail, and hopefully we sign some players.
Hail, hail.